Anyway, we will move on to our next issue, which is issue 2, a question of legitimacy.
In a recent Washington Post article, Professor Rosa Brooks outlined a number of war games which examined various election night outcomes. Conducted by the quote-unquote Transition Integrity Project, an anti-Trump organization with some conservative supporters, Brooks' team examined what they claim are the 4 most likely election night outcomes, these being a narrow Biden win, a big Biden win, a Trump win, and a period of uncertainty a la 2000. Brooks asserts that, quote, with the exception of the big Biden win scenario, each of our exercise reached the brink of catastrophe with massive disinformation campaigns, violence in the streets, and a constitutional impasse, unquote. To mitigate the risk of these outcomes, Brooks says that the military and law enforcement must commit to uphold the election process and that the media should, quote, help people to understand that voter fraud is extraordinarily rare, unquote. Brooks adds that social media platforms must be ready to remove, quote, false statements spread by foreign or domestic disinformation campaigns, unquote.
Eleanor, I think obviously a lot of Democrats will read that and think, okay, great ideas. A lot of conservatives might say, who gets to define the parameters of what is true in a free society? But how serious do you think this threat of a foreign actor shaping the outcome of the election is?
No, I think it was clear from 2016 that Russia actually hacked, I think, 21 electoral systems in 21 states. They didn't actually change any votes. And disinformation, Facebook has already gotten rid of as many Russian trolls as they possibly can, but there are more out there. But those tabletop exercises that you just talked about, I've written about that, I've talked about that on this show. The people who participated were Republicans and Democrats across the board, and they acted out what they thought their side would do in the event of an outcome that they didn't agree with. And I think the one that created a lot of dissension would be a Biden big win in the popular vote and a loss in the Electoral College, which I think is the only possible way that President Trump could win this re-election, with a narrow electoral win. And what they found out in these exercises, which is no big mystery, that both sides have cast the outcome of this election in such apocryphal terms. It's the end of democracy if Trump is reinstated, or I guess Trump says, we will be all communists and socialists if he's not reelected. So when you set the election in those terms, you can't concede. And Hillary Clinton has already suggested to Joe Biden, don't concede if it doesn't look like you're winning. So the lawyers are going to have a lot to do, and because of all the write-in ballots, there's going to be a lot of counting that's going to go on after Election Day. So, we're in for it. But if the right president, the one who actually wins, is inaugurated on January 20th, the system will have worked.
Pat.
My feeling is this. If it's a clear victory in the Electoral College, as it was in 2016 in the Electoral College, and decisive, I think people will accept that. But I think if you've got another 2000 where the situation is up in the air and Florida is undecided and there's hanging chads and ballots are allegedly stolen and all the rest of it, and it's undecided 48 hours after Election Day, I think you got a problem for a real crisis of confidence in the American political system. But that's only, I think, if it's close. If there's clarity in the Electoral College, I think either side will accept it and either side will depart as the Constitution commands, or take office.
So it's not going to be a Roman civil war after Caesar. Anyway, all right, Clarence, your thoughts?
Well, I think that we are better prepared this time than before. There's always new tricks coming down the pike. I think the whole people will be ready for that. The scenarios that Pat draws, though, are possibility. It's possible you might have a contested electoral college vote as a result of a contested general election vote. And it could go to the Supreme Court again. I think a lot of what we're talking about, though, what other people are talking about, is the possibility of Donald Trump losing, but being too stubborn to want to leave the White House. And even talk about how you got to have the military ready in case, have them prepped for this. That's the kind of thing that I don't think is going to happen, because just looking at Donald Trump's record, he talks a great game. He talks real tough and the big bully and all that. But when you really push comes to shove and get him down to the wire, he caves in. I think that's what'll happen this time.
But surely in this case, the caving in would be the right thing to do. Anyway, Ryan, your thoughts?
I think we're in a very, very dangerous situation. I would not be shocked if there was rioting in every major American city come election day, because I do think that with Democrats overwhelmingly pushing to vote by mail, many states will not have the results in by election day, and there will be a presumption that Trump will win, even if he doesn't win ultimately when all the votes are counted. And I think that will lead to a lot of rioting and distress and rioting and maybe who knows what will go on in some cities. I also think there's a lot of concerns coming out of a lot of these states that weren't able to count ballots, mail-in ballots during the primaries. New York took 2 weeks to count mail-in ballots. Other places like Broward County, Florida have also had a long history of being problematic. And there is a question of a coup going on right now. Miss Brooks, Rosa Brooks, talked about it in 2017, how she hoped for a coup. You have prominent Democrats sitting there and telling Biden, do not concede under any circumstances. And you have now former elected officials like Stacey Abrams, who was an elected Democrat and state representative, ran for governor, lost, still has never conceded. I think that there is an absolute attempt to sit there and cast doubts in the minds of millions of voters that any election result is not legitimate, and it's coming from the left right now.
Okay,
I would like to add something. Miss Rosa Brooks is the dean of the Georgetown Law School. I would give her her honorific. One of the participants in those tabletop exercises told me they were asked which candidate has more to lose, and the answer was Joe Biden loses. He goes back to Wilmington. He's an elder statesman, a pretty disgraced elder statesman, I might add. But if Trump loses, he has the prospect of facing a lot of civil litigation. So the conclusion was that Trump has more to lose than Biden, and Trump's leverage is that he can get his people in the streets. And that's
that is ridiculous. Yes,
we're moving on, guys. We're moving on.